these next couple of examples, we're going to take a closer look at what we are talking about when we're thinking about scatter plots. Talk a little bit about some of the definitions that we just saw. So this figure shows the median age of marriage for women and the median age of marriage for men. Each point shows the typical age at which men and women marry by state. We are asked, what can we tell from this graph? So we're going to go ahead and start by answering this. We're going to use a couple of sentences to answer this question, actually. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start off by saying that the graph resembles that of a straight line. So it's not a perfectly straight line, but we do see that it has a pretty linear shape. It has the shape of a pretty straight line, right? And it appears to be increasing, right? As we go to the right, our values appear to increase. Right? So that is one thing that we can see just at a quick glance looking at this. Thinking about the different definitions that we just looked at, talking about our independent and dependent variables for our x coordinates and y coordinates, we can also say that if we think of it as x and y coordinates, it's going to be set up in ordered pairs, right? X and y coordinates are always set up in ordered pairs. So remember, our x-axis is our horizontal axis. So our x-axis is going to be the median age of women, and then the vertical axis is going to be the median age of men. Again, going back to those definitions that we just looked at, our x-axis, our x-coordinate, our x variable, right, is our independent variable. It's the explanatory or the predictor variable. And then the y-coordinate, y variable, is the dependent variable because this is the value that's actually the response. It's the predicted value that we are seeing. Right? So just by taking a quick glance at a graph, we can tell a lot of information without having to have like a huge table of data or things like that. We can kind of start to see some things right away, which is one of the reasons that we are going to be using and depending on scatter plots. As we did before and as we will continue to do throughout the semester, we can use StatCrunch to do some of these, in this case not a calculation, but to actually create a graph for us. So we're going to enter our data values. The only differences between what we did in the previous chapters and what we're going to do in this chapter, instead of just entering our data values into one column, we want to make sure we enter our data value into two columns. Whether or not you choose to title your columns or just kind of keep track of them as you're going through, that's totally up to you. So then once we have all of our data values entered, we're going to hover over the word graph. We're going to select Scatterplot, and then we're going to make sure that we have our x and y variables selected correctly at the top of our window. Once we do that, we're going to select Compute, and that's going to give us a scatter plot. Again, I will make an additional video showing this example on StatCrunch, so that way you can kind of see what we started with on the paper and then how I got the scatter plot that we see at the bottom of this page. So the data shown are based on the students in a small microbiology class. The professor is trying to determine if students who get more sleep score better on quizzes. So what we have here is a table of data values. What we're going to assume, unless we're told otherwise, that our first column here is going to be our x values and our second column is going to be our y values. Again, unless we're told otherwise, so again, make sure as always that you're reading your problems very carefully. Okay. We're going to draw our scatter plot of the data. We're going to use the time in hours that students sleep as the explanatory variable x, so this first column is x, and then our quiz score is our response variable, which is y. Right. And then I went through and I entered these values into StatCrunch, and I created a scatter plot, and this is the image that I was then given. Right. So as we look at this, we can see kind of like our last example that things are increasing, but we're going to kind of take a closer look into this particular scatter plot after we talk about the three things that are listed at the bottom here. So when we're looking at scatter plots, we're going to be looking at things such as trend, which is kind of like center. We're going to look at strength, which is kind of like spread from our previous chapter, and we're also going to look at shape. Right? So as we move into kind of the next few videos, the next few examples, we're going to be taking a closer look at these three ideas and then go back to this example, the scatter plot that I just created, talk a little bit more about this, and talk a little bit more about how we can use these three things to tell us a lot more about scatter plots.